Stangibelisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1, GV, Whiskey 1, Good Vibrations. A viewer recently asked me a question in the comments section of one of my videos. The video had nothing to do with the question, and I generally discourage asking technical questions in the comments sections of unrelated videos, but this particular question has really gotten me working because it just made me so curious. The more research I did, the curiouser I got. And I think the same thing will happen to you. It's called a Marconi antenna. Marconi, you know how that's spelled, I suppose. So what is a Marconi antenna, in fact, and how should you feed power to that antenna? Well, basically a Marconi antenna is a quarter electrical wavelength long, usually vertical or partly vertical, and it's operated against ground, and so it's fed at ground level. There might or might not be radials. Generally there should be to improve the ground conductivity. So your typical quarter wavelength ground mounted vertical antenna is a Marconi antenna. However, there are a lot of variations on that theme, and you can learn them by simply doing a Google search on the phrase Marconi antenna. Make sure you search as a phrase. That means you would put it in quotes generally on the ordinary Google search site, or in the advanced search site, just search on the phrase Marconi antenna. A Marconi antenna is oftentimes bent somewhere along its length so that part of it is vertical and part of it is horizontal. So that gives you some component of vertical polarization and some component of horizontal polarization. The impedance at the feed point, if the antenna is a resonant quarter wavelength long altogether, will be a pure resistance, but it will vary depending upon where you bend it, the ground conductivity, and factors like that. Now, his question specifically pertained to whether or not you could feed this type of antenna with ladder line. That's a balanced open wire feed line. There's something also commonly called window line, which is sort of like TV ribbon, but bigger and with square rectangles punched in it to minimize the amount of dielectric between the conductors. But it's parallel conductor, two-wire transmission line, a balanced line. Now, a Marconi antenna, no matter how you set it up, no matter which variant you use, is inevitably going to be an unbalanced load. So if you try to directly feed that unbalanced load with a balanced transmission line, you're almost certainly going to get radiation from the line. The only thing I can see that you might do is put a balun coil backwards and put the unbalanced connection of the balun coil at the Marconi antenna and the balanced portion at the feed line. Right at the feed point you'd place that, but unless you get a perfect match with that balun, you're going to have loss in the balun because balun coils do not like reactance, and they also like preferably to have a 1-to-1 SWR result on the transmission line when you use them at any kind of antenna. So my answer to your question, can you feed a Marconi antenna with balanced line? Well, of course you can. I mean, the world isn't going to blow up but it's not going to work particularly well. My advice is to use coaxial cable or some other type of unbalanced transmission line, preferably of the same characteristic impedance as the resistive portion of the feed point impedance of the quarter wavelength antenna. So you'll learn about what a Marconi antenna is by doing a lot of research on it, and there's one particular article that you'll find that shows several drawings of variants of that antenna. Some use 2 wires, it's called a folded Marconi, and some use 3 wires, it's called a 3-wire Marconi antenna. But they are always unbalanced loads at the feed point, and the feed point is always at ground level. So you can take it from there. What is a Marconi antenna? Depends who you ask. And it depends, well, there are a lot of different things that can qualify as a Marconi antenna. But it's a quarter electrical wavelength long, fed against ground, so it's an unbalanced quarter wavelength antenna. Basically, that's it. You can have fun with Marconi antennas on any band, all the way from 14 megahertz down in frequency. I wouldn't recommend trying to use one on 220 megahertz. It would be kind of ridiculous. Although if you have a handheld radio with a quarter wavelength vertical at 220 megahertz attached to the top, in a sense, that's a Marconi antenna too. Hope that clears things up. My recommendation, you should not use ladder line to feed our Marconi antenna if you want ideal performance from that antenna. Stan Gibilisco, W1GV, signing off, saying 73 and so long, which, on any variant of any antenna, Marconi or not, regardless of frequency, in my native fist always translates to da-da-da-da-da-da.